Because once we know how to make the money, we can make the money, then we can buy the trademark, we can buy the website, we can buy the logo. If your business isn't making any money right now, then it's not because your idea sucks. It's because you're not focusing on the right things, because people have made lots and lots of money off of all sorts of different random ideas, and it can work. It all depends on how you execute. And executing just means focusing on the right things and following through with the right things. So let me quickly do a little example. Where's my red pen gone? There it is. Let me do a little example, right, of this is what normally happens when somebody starts a business. And it's certainly what happened when I started my first business when I was about 17, 18. So on this side, we have money out. And on the other side, we're going to put money in, right? Money in. And this is a representation of businesses. Right, so this is your business, and I'm going to show you what people who just start out always do, and it's the one reason why their business never makes any money, and then it will just crash and burn, and they end up in debt, or they end up with no money at the end of it because they spent all their money trying to start this business. You can start a business for nothing. Keep that in mind. You can start a business right now for virtually nothing, literally pennies, nothing. So what do we need when we start a business? Now, most people immediately, they think, okay, cool. So we need a name. We need a logo. We need a website. Maybe we need to trademark our logos, our websites, whatever it is. Maybe we need to get a social media manager, spend some money on social media to push that advertising. Or maybe you go in deep and you get some office furniture, or you rent an office if you're really, really stupid. But these things are all come at a cost. They all cost money, or if they don't cost money, they do cost you time. This one, for example, costs more time, but as we know, time is money. So that's going to cost you money. Logo's going to cost money. Website's going to cost money. Trademark's going to cost money. Social media account manager or creatives, whatever it is going to cost money. If you get an office, it's going to cost money. All of these things are going to cost you money. So when you start a business, you are down. You are out like fucking 10 G's at this point. If you do all of this, you're out so much money. And you haven't even made a sale yet. People that run actual businesses, because a business, like I said, is just money into. It's just money in. When people are paying you for a service or a product, that is a business. If you have spent money on a logo and a website and a trademark and social media and you fucking rented an office, you don't have a business. You have a fucking expensive hobby. That's what you've got. Until you start getting money in, you do not have a business. So the first thing, if you want to fix this, if you want to actually make progress and sales in your business, you need to ask one question, and it's always how. And it's, how are we going to get customers? How are we going to make sales? How are we going to keep customers? How are we going to have consistent sales? And obviously, how are we going to sell? What are we going to sell even? How are we going to sell, right? And then say what are we selling? That is the baseline. That's the first question. What are we selling? And then after you know exactly what you're selling, whether it's product or service, you go through the hows and you go, how do we get customers? How do we get sales? How do we keep customers? How do we keep sales consistent? Once you have this, you have a business. But here's a problem. Most people don't do that. They go straight for these things and completely ignore this, and they think that is, you know what I mean? That's like second class workings. So let me quickly show you one other little tip or trick that's going to make sure that never, ever, ever happens again, right? So what you want to do is list out all of the things that you think you need. And this could be with any situation. It doesn't have to be physical things. It could just be like situational, right? So all of the things that you need. Okay, well, we need a logo. We need a website. We need to know how to make sales. how to make money. We need eventually a trademark, right? Whatever it is. Okay, so out of all of these things, I guarantee you there is always one of them that if you fixed that one, the rest of it would be solved. And almost every single time, right at the start, when you start a business, it's going to be, how do we make the money, right? How do we make the money? Because once we know how to make the money, we can make the money, then we can buy the trademark, we can buy the website, we can buy the logo. All of these things can be bought once you're making money. There's no point in spending money on it when there's no money coming in because you don't have a business. You're wasting money at this point. And I guarantee you don't need all of these things to make sales. Honestly, you don't need it to make sales and make your first dollars. It just really doesn't. It's just so unnecessary. Please don't do it. But if you look at things and think, okay, so I need all of these things, but which one is going to solve all of the problems, or at least make the other problems look tiny and obsolete, then that is what we call a priority. And you should focus 100% effort into that thing until you resolve that problem. But then that problem will change. So once you know how to make the money, for example, so you know how to make the money, that's good. So what's the next problem you're going to have? It's going to be keeping it or growing it and stopping people leaving. So reducing your churn or just increasing your sales volume in total. But if you use that way of prioritizing and you start off with, how do I get money in instead of how can I spend money the fastest, then your business is going to grow much faster and you're going to make money a lot quicker too. You're going to make a lot more of it. So that's the mindset you want to get out of. And like I said, when I was 18, I was horrific for it. I just was like, throw money at it, throw money at it, throw money at it. That will fix the problem. Doesn't fix the problem. You need to solve this before anything else. So yeah, subscribe, watch another video.